The 25th Hour Radio Show. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to the 25th Hour Radio Show today here on Monster Radio AM1150. I am your host, Rob Fairless. On the phone with me today is voiceover artist and musician Susan Bennett. Susan, thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to join me on the show.
Happy to do it. Thanks.
Everybody, if you don't already know, Susan might be best known as the original voice of the iPhone's Siri. And we'll get into that here in a second. But first, before the voiceover opportunities came into play, it seems as if your passion in life was music. How was you first introduced to music, and what was it about music that made you want to learn to play yourself?
Well, to tell you the truth, I was just born with a gift. My parents bought me a little one-octave piano when I was a little kid, and my parents weren't very musical, so I don't know how they happened upon that gift. But they didn't notice, but a next-door neighbor noticed that I was picking out melodies on this little tiny piano, and he called my parents and said, "I think you have a musical child." And he was an elderly man, and before he moved away from our neighborhood, he gave me his upright piano. And so I proceeded to take piano lessons for about the next 12 years. And music, I would have to say, is still really the key factor in my life. I'm married to a guitar player, and he and I had a band together for many years. And we still work in a band periodically, too, at this point in time as well. And music is what led me to voiceover work, which eventually led me to being the voice of Siri.
So in the very beginning, you know, as far as music is concerned, after you had been practicing a little bit and you started to get good, you know, what was your goals back then? Did you want to be a big rock star? Did you want to be a famous songwriter? I mean, did you have any aspirations like that associated with your music in the very beginning?
No, I really didn't, because I had a feeling, and I don't know where I got this, but I just didn't think that you could make a living as a musician. And of course, you know, I'm a different age. I'm of a different generation, a different era. I grew up in the 50s, so I'm 105 actually. You know, and so you know, it was a very different thing for women. I think, you know, women at that time were encouraged to just find husbands. And so I wasn't really thinking about music as a career. And so I was fortunate enough to start working with music professionally when I was in college and worked with a band. And then when I eventually ended up in Atlanta, I started doing a lot of studio work, singing jingles for commercials. And that's where the voiceover stuff came in, because one day the voiceover talent didn't show up for the commercial that we were singing for, and the owner of the studio said, "Susan, you don't have an accent. Come over here and read this copy." So I did rather easily, and I thought, oh, ding, 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 there's a possible new career. And so I got a voice coach and a talent agent, and have been working ever since. So
now, as far as becoming the voice of Siri, you didn't know you were going to be the voice of Siri, right? I mean, you did the voice work for this project 6 years before Siri was actually introduced to the public. Am I correct?
Right. I think what happened is, and by the way, there were many original voices of Siri, and there are many new voices of Siri all over the world, because even though these are concatenated recordings, meaning that they just take pieces of the recordings and put them back together to get, you know, new phrases and sentences for the devices, they needed it to sound very natural, and so they had to get people who spoke whatever language, you know, that their country had. You know, they were native speakers. So there were many original series worldwide. And I've been in touch with some of them. We all basically had the same experience. We were recording for this company that ended up being Nuance, which is a text-to-speech company. And we thought we were just doing more phone type of messaging. And I guess technically you can say that Siri is, you know, a phone system, but she's much more than that. You know, she became more than a voice. She became a persona. And so it was a very unusual thing. It was shocking. I when I found out, Siri appeared on October 4th, 2011, and a fellow voice actor emailed me and said, "Hey, we're playing around with this new iPhone app. Isn't this you?" And I went, "What?"
Yeah, I mean, did you even know what Siri was?
No, I had no idea. No, and we were not hired to be Siri. They basically got our voices from Nuance. Apple sort of came in after the fact and got our voices from this text-to-speech company that we had worked for. And we sort of, I'd have to say that we kind of fell through that giant chasm between, pre-millennium and millennium, because we just didn't realize how quickly technology was going to take over or what it was going to, offer us in the future. We just thought we were doing messaging. and then suddenly we're on millions of iPhones and tablets, and so it was a great surprise. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I bet. So as far as the word getting out to the general public that you were the voice of Siri, how did that come about?
Well, it took me 2 years to decide to do it. People were pestering me during that whole time and just saying, "Oh my God, you need to let people know." And I had to look into it, legally to see what my position was legally. And also, I knew that it was going to affect my voiceover career. And I love my work. I love what I do, and I didn't want it to have any kind of negative effect. Because people tend to stereotype you, and if they find out that you do a certain voice, it's like, oh, she's Siri. Oh, well, she probably couldn't do this, and so it really took me a long, long time to decide to do that, because also I wasn't sure if I wanted, to open that particular can of worms. I'm a pretty private person, and so it was a real struggle to make the decision. But finally, my husband and my son prevailed, and they just said, "You are an idiot. This is such a unique situation. You've got to do this." And I thought, you're right. I'm just being silly. So I thought, whatever. And I just hopped out there and decided, well, we'll see what happens.
Now, did you have your doubters who maybe didn't believe you?
Yes, I guess you'd have to say, because when I my first interview was with CNN.com. A wonderful woman named Jessica Ravitz over there, and I had gotten in touch with her, and I said, my husband and I tried to contact the Ellen DeGeneres show, and they subsequently wanted to get in touch with me when I told them that we tried to reach them. They just couldn't believe it. But I did this small interview called the Red Chair Interview. It's just a little part of the CNN.com. And, it was just kind of a little homey thing. It was recorded here in my home, and no big deal. And then all of a sudden, CNN decided, wait a minute, this could be a pretty big deal. And then they thought, well, but we don't really have any proof that she's Siri. She says she is. And, of course, I recognized my own voice, but they actually hired a forensic audiologist to test my voice. And he said, yes, 100% yes, she's the original voice of Siri. And so they went ahead and had me on the CNN morning show, or HLN morning show, I guess. And so it went from there.
So what was your life like once you were confirmed as Siri's voice? Did the attention that came with it disrupt your life in any way?
Not really, because the first month after the big revelation, it was very, very exciting. It was very, very busy. I came home from that first interview to about 500 emails and 100 phone calls and all kinds of stuff. But the media is kind of a funny thing. Once you do one thing, then no one else really wants you, because you're no longer the first. They're no longer the first. Could be the first. Mm-hmm. And so, but it was very exciting. I did a lot of appearances and interviews and things. And however, I was fortunate enough to get a really, really fabulous agent in Los Angeles he's a very non-agenty type of agent. He is just a wonderful person. He really gets me, and he understands that I am very much can be an introvert, and so he really worked with me to make everything work and keep things copacetic for me.
So what are you up to now? Are you still big into music? Is that still a passion of yours to this day?
Oh, yeah. I play and listen to music every day. And my husband's a guitar player, as I said. And we have a band called Boomers Gone Wild. We play nothing but 60s and 70s rock and soul music. And so we do that. And So, yeah, music is definitely key for me. But I'm still doing a lot of voiceover work, and also because of the Siri thing, I'm starting to do a lot of appearances and speaker events. And, if your audience cares to go out to my website, susancbennett.com, you can see a TED Talk that I did and some other interviews.
Now, are you working on any big projects at the moment that the general public will be able to recognize your voice on, or is those type of things kind of, you got to keep it under wraps?
Well, you can hear my voice in a lot of different places, but at this point in time, there's not any particular project. I am the voice of Delta Airlines gates worldwide, and what else? Was originally my voice was on an AT&T commercial that played for a long time. But at the moment, I can't really think of anything that people would hear. I will have to say that I have kind of a ghosty voice that's in a lot of different places, and you may not recognize my voice, but I bet you hear it every day.
Now, you spoke of your website. Are you a big fan of social media? Do you have an online presence that people can get more information at like a Facebook page or a Twitter page?
Absolutely. Facebook page is Susan Bennett Voice of Siri, and you can reach me on Twitter at Seriously Susan, and that's SIRI, seriously, and same seriously on Instagram as well.
Now, do you find yourself gravitating more towards Facebook or Twitter? Is there one more that you're on more than the other that people can find you at?
My son is very involved in social networking, and he works with a company called Fanbase. And these guys, this guy Ben Landis is just amazing. I have close to 1.3 million followers on Twitter, and personally, I have a Facebook page that is just for me. Having people that I actually know.
Mm-hmm, yeah, I get it.
Because the one thing about social networking, if you have a presence like I do with being the original voice of Siri, it's impossible to keep up with everyone. Just absolutely impossible. So, I'll have to say to your audience, if anyone's written to me and I didn't write back, I apologize. I probably didn't see it.
Well, sometimes it's hard to get back to 1.2 million followers.
Well, it's overwhelming. There are just too many numbers. The numbers are just too great. So, So social networking, I understand how important it's become, especially in my business. I know that some people are even hired or fired based on the number of their social media numbers. Many times actors are auditioning all the time, and I, for instance, had an audition where I was able to get to the second tier of the auditions because of my social networking numbers. And so it's become a factor in a lot of things.
Well, Susan, I want to thank you once again for being a guest on the 25th Hour Radio Show. It has been a pleasure speaking with you today.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed talking with you.
The 25th Hour Radio Show.